this. Miles Lucas is back at the Art of Skill studio. Okay, it's my living room.
Thanks for having me back.
It's all an illusion. So we wanted to talk about some of the techniques that you would employ breathwork-wise that will help you during the role, maybe before the role, and after the role, so that you can recover going into the next role. And so maybe talk me through how you think about breath work and sort of your strategy and when to employ what style of breath work in order to be maximally able to perform at your best.
100%. So there are moments all throughout those scenarios that you mentioned that you need to use some sort of breathing that would potentially enhance what's going to happen next. So there's a big misconception that you shouldn't hyperventilate, which gets a bad rap. Breathe fast. You shouldn't breathe fast for any reason, which doesn't make sense because sometimes you need to. So nose breathing, slow breathing is going to be very useful for when you can control the pace. If you're lucky enough to have a partner that you can control the pace, then light nose breathing is going to be awesome. But if you can't control the pace, then you're going to need to use some type of breath work to recover potentially mid-round. And that could be called hyperventilation. It doesn't matter what it's called, but it just means you need to breathe more to recover, or maybe even breathe more than your respiratory needs in order to keep that energy reserve.
And so the goal is to have an oxygen surplus and to minimize the CO2, because that's part of what you teach too, is clearing that CO2 out as part of that so that you can be at a surplus, right?
And 100%. The CO2 buildup is when the loss of mental acuity starts to happen. So that diminishment of a cognitive function is because your CO2 is too high. So if you have someone big on top of you and you feel like you're a step behind, it's very likely that you're not meeting your respiratory needs. And that's what you need to do. That's what you need to turn the switch and apply some breath work in that scenario.
And what tells you that you need to turn that switch? You're just starting to get fatigued and you feel like your energy level's going?
That's right. You felt it. You felt it before.
Oh, no, never. Not me. No.
We've all felt it.
Yeah,
there's those moments, and you even start to get, if you want to get real precise, you start to get goosebumps a little bit. You start to get this spider sense of like, whoa, things are not going my way. And you can feel that demise, sort of that imminent demise almost happen when you get, and you start to get anxious at that time too. So the moment you feel that, forceful exhales, dumping that CO2 as quickly as possible. And I say forceful exhales because you have to keep your core strong if we're engaged. So when you see people hyperventilating or breathing fast in a bad way, it's when they're breathing with their chest and they're gasping for air. You see them, and if you're caught underneath somebody or engaged with somebody and you're breathing with your chest high like that, gasping for air, that is not going to serve you well for what's about to come. So you need to switch that. You need to switch more breathing with the lower part of your lungs and really creating this interthoracic pressure that keeps you from being able to get the wind knocked out of you.
So you brace your abdomen,
right, and
then you breathe deeply into your diaphragm.
Yeah, using your diaphragm, pulling down as low as you can. And you can even get good. You notice I make a sound when I do it. I purse my lips a little bit. Yeah. I'm doing that on purpose in order to create that tension. And then you could get even better where you use the vacuum that you create. I don't have to take a breath in because of my structure, because of my posture, and because that vacuum gets created. So if you get efficient, I took four breaths and I didn't have to take a breath in because air's just rushing back in.
Yeah, that was a real epiphany for me when you taught, a couple classes of yours that I've been in and been part of, was this idea that your stomach will naturally recover some oxygen when you're at a deficit. And you call it breathing below neutral, or you have some terms for that stuff.
That's right. So neutral means neutral air pressure. So for sitting up like this, we have about 40% left. You take a breath in, you let go. There. Now I'm at neutral. I still have all that left. And so it's that below neutral that creates the vacuum that allows air to rush back in.
And that below neutral is where the CO2 buildup presumably happens, I assume, right? Because if you're just filling the top part of your lungs, there's not a gas exchange here in this lower part, right?
That's right. You'd have stagnant air just sitting down there. If you're breathing with that sort of panicky chest, gasping breath, then you just have stagnant air sitting there. And the highest concentration of alveoli happens to be in the lowest part of your lungs, so you get the best gas exchange there. So you got to move the air. It's super simple, but once you learn it, just like you experience, you can apply it immediately.
What I've noticed for me when I get tired within a round, I always know because I will concede something.
Oh yeah.
You're fighting, you're doing, you're intercepting, you're in the game, you're playing guard, you're doing whatever you're doing, and you're energetic. And there comes a moment where it's like, this is too much work to prevent the guard pass, and I'll concede the guard pass, or I'll concede something.
Wow, yeah.
And I've now, I'm thinking about now in those moments, like, no, it's an oxygen thing, Rick. You just have to get yourself super oxygenated again.
Right, and maybe what you should concede is the fact that we try and hide our breath a little bit because we don't want to seem like we're gassed out.
Yeah.
It's kind of your tell if you're gassed out. So instead of conceding the move, maybe you should concede the fact that you need to breathe heavy now. So it's like you get in the position, instead of letting them pass, you'll notice, like even just now, I can feel it. It's an emotional breath. When you breathe fast like that, you get this a dose of adrenaline. You get dopamine. You can feel sensations start to happen. You get emotional, and you can make that happen in the midst of the match. And maybe you won't give up that position quite so much. If you do, just let them know that you're breathing hard and you're ready to get back in the game.
And so for viewers at home, kind of show me you do this expulsion of air.
Yes.
Is there a tempo? Because I know sometimes you get into patterns and you do certain things. Like, what's something actionable that people watching can implement immediately in their game?
So that's the number one thing. First move you learn in jiu-jitsu is probably how to escape mount.
How to tap.
How to tap is true. That should be the very first. But that should be second. You don't know. I don't know. But somebody's sitting on your chest and wants to punch you in the face. How to escape mount to me is always the first one that I teach other people. So the how to escape mount of breath work is forceful exhales. So super simple. You find neutral. You take your breath in. You let go. You're at neutral. And it's important to note that what some people might do is I take a breath in, I let go. Now I'm at neutral, right? But then if I clamp down and then I lean back up, all of a sudden I've changed my neutral zone with my posture, and now I've created a little bit of a vacuum in there. I've created a little bit like a gasping want for more air. So it's important the position you're in, however we're folded up, that where neutral is, and then to be able to use just a few forceful exhales through the teeth, through pursed lips. You'll notice you can create this core strength, this pressure. And then in the midst of a roll, 3 to 5 forceful exhales will dump CO2 quick enough that you will regain some mental acuity, no matter how tired you are.
Now, do you recommend that people get into kind of this breathing pattern just through the duration of the entire roll? Are you someone that, or do you advocate you're breathing through your nose, you're calm, everything's fine until that moment when you need it?
Ooh, again, it's who you're dealing with. So if you're dealing with somebody that's going to sprint and going to act erratically, potentially, then to breathe a little more than your respiratory needs is going to be useful in that case. And what also it does is gets rid of your tell. So if you're kind of a heavy breather out of the gate, well, when I do that later, because I'm not tired yet, and you may even think it's a little bit of a mind game too, right? Because before we even roll, if I go you're kind of like, well, why are you charging up? Like, are you?
And I had that experience the first time you and I rolled.
Did you?
I'm like, what is this? What is going on here? You're like,
really?
Yeah, it was strange to me because I hadn't encountered anybody that had done. I mean, you get people that are gasping.
Yes.
But not something very specific and sort of a technique there.
Well, so listen, I have the worst lung capacity of any of us. Anybody watching, I'm at the very bottom. And I learned this after learning breath work, and that's why it's so important to me. And so that's what's kept me on the mats. And there's some of you guys out there too. Most people have 4 to 6 liters. I'm under 4 liters, and I'm changing that, and you can change that. But because of that, I have to breathe more than most people, and I used to get embarrassed. I used to, if I'm jogging with somebody, I felt like I was more tired than they were. If I'm rolling with them, I felt like I was more tired than them. And the worst possible thing you could do is is not breathe enough for what you need in that moment,
Yeah.
especially in jiu-jitsu. If you're jogging, that's a different story because you can control the pace. You can slow down a little bit. But if you are rolling with someone and it's a competitive match at all, it's better to have a little bit extra in the tank than it is to be needing extra when you don't have it.
Yeah, we all hear you need to breathe in jiu-jitsu. We all hear breath, but it's a technique.
That's right.
It's
nobody tells you how.
No one tells you how to do it.
Yeah.
And so we sort of minimize the importance because we've been breathing since our butt was spanked when we came out of the womb, right?
That's right.
We've been breathing. And so it's like, it's just this thing we do, but it's still a technique. We've been squatting ever since we were born, but yet we still go to the gym and do our squats, right? We strengthen those things.
That's a huge thing too. So taking some big breaths and taking some sort of powerful, you can loosen up fascia and remove discomfort. So the first time some people might do some significant breath work, you're going to have some discomfort, maybe for that day, maybe even for a little bit longer, but that quickly goes away. And then all of a sudden you're taking bigger, deeper breaths. And that is your fuel. That's the tank right there. So if you can control the tank, improve the size of it, fuel it more efficiently, more often, then, man, you have a lot more energy when you need it.
I'll go jog the hills around my neighborhood or go walk or sometimes sprint, depending on how I'm feeling. And ever since I started working with you, now when I go, I focus on my breathing. And I'm focused on diaphragmatic breathing, really clearing completely and just kind of having this good oxygenation in a more deliberate way.
Have you felt it particularly on sprints, particularly uphill?
Yes.
That's it,
Yes.
baby.
Yes.
That is it.
Yeah, it's absolutely helped. Absolutely. Even just sometimes just even as a distraction, because your mind says, slow down, you're redlining yourself. Like your mind will always try to shut you down athletically because it wants to maintain homeostasis, which is that stable state. And when you're redlining yourself, it wants to preserve you. It says, no, slow down.
Yeah.
But by getting into my breath, I find that I'm distracted from these mental signals that say, slow down, right?
And that's part of the pattern that we talk about too. So you hear me do it, you've heard other people do it.
Yes.
Some sort of pattern. Doesn't really matter the pattern, but the fact that a pattern exists is an amazing way for your mind to attach to something. So then if I'm breathing that way, and then I sweep you, all of a sudden the pattern is gone.
Yeah.
And so now I can use a very small part of my awareness to connect to that pattern. And it's just a little monitor to know that I'm breathing or not. And then, I'm not breathing, a few forceful exhales to get me back to where I need to be. And then maybe I pick up the pattern again or whatever it is. But at least you have some sort of awareness of how it's going.
And the other component to this is recovery in between rounds. And I have to tell you, this has been an absolute game changer for me.
Yeah.
Those of you who are a little bit older, we're over 40, you don't have the gas tank that the youngins have. And what happens is over the course of 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 10 rounds, your energy level does this. And eventually you're operating at a very low level of energy by the time you get to the 7th, 8th round. And what I've noticed since I've been really focusing on recovering in between rounds. I won't talk to anybody. I'll go off into the corner in between rounds and just get into my breath and clear the CO2, try to get my heart rate lowered so that I can go into the next round, maybe not fully charged up because sometimes 90 seconds or 60 seconds, that's not enough time to really drop your heart rate the way back down.
Right, sure.
But it gives you, gets you toward that goal.
Right. You have to get control of it. You have to get control of your heart rate. Sitting on the sidelines for a moment and just controlling your energy and knowing that we only have a certain amount of a certain duration where we can have this peak heart rate. Yeah. So Rickson Gracie knew that. That's when he would attack people, and everybody's the same. Everyone only has a certain amount of max heart rate they can do. Yeah. So you bring that down. The lower you are, the higher your opponent is, the better for you.
Right. And there are some techniques for that as well. And one of them, which is, I think, counterintuitive, is that if you exhale very slowly or even hold your breath, that tends to lower your heart rate. If you're breathing very quickly, that will tend to keep your heart rate up. So maybe talk a little bit about kind of technically how you should approach that.
It's super simple. So when you breathe in, your heart rate goes up. When you breathe out, it goes down. It really affects, just in and out, affects your heart rate. So if you breathe out more than you breathe in, then you will start to get your heart rate down. But it's tough to only breathe out or to do long exhales when you're tired.
Yes.
So the trick is to really get yourself ready, get yourself comfortable. Once the CO2 has been building up, get rid of it, and then start testing long exhales. And so when you start to get to long exhales again, then you keep sneaking in a full breath when you need to, but then a long exhale. And then the more you can do long exhales, then eventually you switch to your nose, which is going to give you, kind of put you in more of a parasympathetic state, more of a rest and digest. Not quite, because we're still in the midst of jiu-jitsu, but you switch to nose breathing, you switch to long exhales, and then now your heart rate's under control. And even just like you said, 60 minutes, 60 seconds is not enough time to get your heart rate down.
Yeah.
So you take a part of the next round and you stay calm and you let the other Clay Guida jump around and smack their face and get ready. And you just maintain your composure until you're ready, and then kind of
Yeah,
stalk
it
your
was
opponent.
surprising to me. I had a hard training session a few weeks ago. One of those nights, I was at Clark Gracie's, and he was preparing for competition. All the guys are preparing for competition, and those are hard classes, man. You know that, there's a lot of positional sparring, and then it's open sparring, and all I focused on the whole night was I'm going to recover in between rounds. And so I would, get into some fast breathing initially to clear the CO2 and kind of get my, self oxygenated again, and then focus on those slow exhales. And it was shocking, honestly,
Was it?
how energetic I felt at the end of that training session versus how I would normally feel. And I'm the oldest guy in the room. I mean, I hate to say it, but I'm literally the oldest. There was one guy that was older than me, but I haven't seen him there in a while. But yet I'm able to get through a 2-hour training session and walk out the door, feeling beat up physically because, it's,
As you should. That's a good training session.
but I had energy. I could have kept going.
That's amazing. That's it. That's this is the secret to it. So, I mean, if you are smashed up and tired and somebody's on top of you and you're having trouble, what does it matter what you had for breakfast or how you slept that night? In the moment, energy is in the air. And so if you need energy, man, you just breathe in ways that you can create, control, store that energy, use that energy when you need, and then the rest is easy.
Nice. Well, and for any of you guys that want to do a deep dive into this subject, I mean, this is very brief here, but we've produced a course with Miles, and it's available now over at theartofskill.com. And
Breath mastery for jiu-jitsu, baby.
I think it's a game changer. It has been for me, and especially for us older guys. We need every advantage that we can get. You got to sleep good. You have to have good nutrition. You need good restorative modalities that you do, yoga and things to fix all the, the things that get bent out of shape in jiu-jitsu. But breath work, I think, is one of those components that, I didn't realize how important it was until I started actually experiencing what it gives you.
I've compiled 9 different modules that cross over all the different aspects of breath work for jiu-jitsu. So before you train, in the middle of your training, after your training, and this is stuff that you really can't find anywhere else because I've taught this for a long time and I've pulled from all these different areas and really just sort of tested this stuff on the mat. And so that's why this stuff is so important to me and it's so exciting to deliver this. I'm pushing 50 myself. And so my friends that need this, it's going to change the game in a single training session after learning this stuff. Instead of being tired after 6 rounds, maybe you go all the way to 10 rounds. Maybe you keep going. I mean, it's the sky's the limit.
Yeah, amazing stuff. Thank you, Miles. Always good to see you.
Yeah, you too.
All right.
Guys, when you train jiu-jitsu, do you ever gas out mid-roll after you started out strong? Do you ever feel your energy decline throughout your training session? Do you feel anxiety when you step on the mats? Or maybe when you compete? Or even when you've taken time off the mats and you come back? Hi, I'm Miles Lucas. I'm a certified Wim Hof Method instructor. I've been training jiu-jitsu over 25 years, and I'm going to teach you the 9 fundamental breathwork techniques that are going to solve these problems and unlock your true potential on the mats. You've probably heard your coach remind you to breathe while you're training, but how do you do it? Just like escaping mount is a technique, breathwork is a technique. And in fact, a series of techniques that can be learned and applied immediately for game-changing results. If you're ready to learn the secrets that elite athletes are already using, then get my new course, Breath Mastery for Jiu-Jitsu, at theartofskill.com.